All right. We're live on YouTube. Going live on TikTok. So it should be sending out notifications there, which will be good. It'll let people know. Thank you for joining us here. If you're watching in the replay, then I'm sorry that you didn't get to ask your question. But if you are coming on and you have some questions, whether you're on TikTok up there or you're on YouTube down here, this one wasn't announced. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, and I didn't want to announce it and then not be able to make it. So I appreciate for the people who are coming on in the short notice. I've been sitting in traffic for 30 minutes or so. I was just in a studio, a friend's studio, recording some things and some video. So that was kind of cool, new experience outside of our little studio here in the office. So hopefully that video will come up soon. But then, yeah, I got to sit in traffic for a half hour. So I'm here. So, hey, Cedric, what's happening? Hello to everybody who is joining here. I'm going to apologize if I'm going to drink something. Sitting in traffic, I had no drink, no food, and I was hungry and thirsty. So didn't want to miss my live, though. Reclicked, what's happening? Yeah, if you have questions, throw them in the chat. I'd love to try to answer any of the questions. Let's see. Live Virgo Gleaming. I'm not sure if I can understand either your question. Hey, massive question. How would you go about telling your significant other to try and be more something involved? Are you the male or female? I can't tell by your name. Do you want your husband or wife to be more involved? Because there's different approaches. So you are the male, and so you're asking to your female to be more involved. Well, so there's probably a lot going on there that I have to understand. So without offending them, so here's what you have to do. First, you have to have positive reinforcement. I don't know the situation. It's hard to answer this with just like a short question. I'm going to make some assumptions. This may or may not apply to you, but the question may apply to other people who have this situation. So I will try. First thing is, I'm going to guess, I don't know, but usually when a significant other, and this can be male or female, isn't involved, there's typically reasons why they're not involved. Either one, they don't enjoy it. Two, let's say you work a lot, and you actually prefer working versus being involved with the kids. Or two is, or there's another reason is that, when you do it, you are either criticized or you don't feel really good about it. And I know that happens a lot on the other side, meaning dads will not be as involved because they feel like everything they do is wrong. And here's an example. Dad takes the baby, gets them dressed, and comes out, whatever. And then the wife might say something like, "Why did you dress them in that?" Or some kind of criticism. Now, that's not something that happens all the time, but, or, because I get the same question about like chores or like housework. And it's like, how do I get my husband to do this? Or how do I get my wife to do this? And a lot of times we have to look at ourselves and realize that we might be criticizing the other person. So one of the first things to do is to give them positive reinforcement. So when you do see something that they do, meaning, your wife in the sense like she's playing with the child, or she goes, "Oh, that's so awesome that you're playing with a child," whatever. Or, "Oh, hey, I really appreciate the way that you did this." Or, "You know what? It was really helpful when you took the child of those hours and I was able to go do something. It was just really, really helpful." Giving that positive reinforcement, then the person wants to do that again. And so that's one of the best ways to do that. You can't force somebody to do something that they don't want to do. And if somebody doesn't like being around the child, there's not a lot you can do about that other than making it a more positive experience, or really talking with them in a separate instance where it's like, hey, what is it about the situation that you don't enjoy? This is often in reverse. I mean, I get this a lot when I go on women's podcasts and such, and they're like, how can I get the men more involved? And typically it's positive reinforcement. It's realizing that there's more than one way to do something. And so you can't want somebody to want something. They have to want it themselves. So here's the part. You might feel that something is really, really important, and for you it is. Not going to argue that. But just because somebody else feels a different way, I know it sucks, but you can't, it's not fair for you to judge that. You might say to yourself, well, I wish, well, she should be more involved, or she should enjoy the child more. Yeah, but that's something that you want. And so we have to be careful on how much we push that onto our spouses or the mother of our children or whatever. You've got to be careful with that, because it's very judgmental. You're not looking at it from the other person's perspective. Have some empathy. I tell this to the wives about the husbands. If they've been, in some instances, let's say they've been working all day, they come home, it's like they're tired, they're exhausted. So you've got to make a situation in which, maybe the person gets a little bit of a break before they're involved with the child. So, yeah. Let me see what else I can do here. I hope that helps a little bit. Thomas, I want to have kids in the future. How important is it to teach kids financial literacy? I think it's really important, but that's my opinion. I think different people have different, requirements for financial aspects or their financial life. I mean, I think financial literacy is very under, most people don't teach it. You don't learn it in school. So yeah, I mean, I do think it's important. Are you a teacher of financial literacy, Thomas? Jay, is it wrong not to have any kids? No, it's not wrong. In fact, I was just having a conversation with somebody about that. That's a personal choice. I mean, there are studies and people can tell you, oh, you'll be, people are happier if they do this, but I think it's totally a personal choice. I don't think it's wrong. That's an individual thing. You just make sure that you're with somebody else who also doesn't want kids. You don't want to get in a situation where you're with somebody who wants kids and you don't. That's not fair. Then you have to figure that one out. But no, I don't think that's bad. Hey, all these people coming in. All right, let's see. So Cedric asked, my girlfriend, soon-to-be wife, is going through postpartum depression. I've been motivating her, tell her she's a great mom and things like that. It hurts to see her go through it. What would you advise? Yeah, the postpartum thing is real. If she is open, to therapy, it might be helpful. I think in that same thing is, yes, you can tell her. I think you can help more. You help as much as you can. It's often, the hormonal element. Many women don't feel like, they're a good enough mom. I think you have to really get to the crux of what the depression is really about. Sometimes it is just feeling like you're not good enough. Other times it can be you're tired. Other times it can be it's a combination of all of them. Just your hormonal levels change. So I think part of it is really understanding from her and having that conversation, maybe at a time where she's not down. I wouldn't have that conversation in an emotional state. I would have it when she's, pretty calm, and really get to the thing of like, what is it that she's feeling and why, and what is it? Have some empathy for her. And yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're trying to be there for her. I would be careful with trying to motivate too much. Empathy usually works a little bit more or a little bit better than motivation, where you're saying, come on, you can do this and let's do this. Like, I don't know, when I'm kind of feeling down, at least for me, like that's annoying to me. Um, I think when I'm in those states, at least what I appreciate is somebody saying, "Hey, I can see that you're, not feeling well." If my wife does that, she does that really well, where she's like, "Hey, looks like you had a tough day. Is there anything I can help with, or something that you want to do, or like." It's just being kind of there and supportive. You don't have to be in their down. You don't have to go down with them, but it's just being there. I think being supportive is good. Let's see. All right. Well, it'd be so. I mean, there's some feedback about like not having kids is selfish for the survival of the world. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it from a macro level, you know, I'm not going to argue that one, but you guys can have that political argument. um, I just think the personal philosophy of that, it's up to you. I mean, some people will say, is it your duty to have children? For some people, they shouldn't have kids. Hey, let's go there. So, the idea that, everybody has to have a child or that we have to reproduce in order for the, survival of our species. There's some people that should not be having children. Let's be honest. Whether it's the fact that they're not going to be able to take care of them, they're not going to be there, they're not going to support, they shouldn't have kids. So you've got to be careful with that argument, especially if somebody has the wherewithal to realize that they're, I don't want to bring a child into this world, which I wouldn't, be able to support or be able, and I don't just mean financially, I just mean even mentally and physically be there and be present. I mean, as it is already, the amount of children that are born to parents that don't want them and that are then given up is horrible. And so, yeah, I mean, I think when somebody chooses it like deliberately, like kudos to them to know that that's not what they want. Let's see. You guys got some good questions though. Jay, good to see you. XRP Brandon, good to see you as well. Let's see. I am good, Jay. Thank you. Although I was telling people earlier, I just got out of traffic, so I am thirsty. I will take a drink real quick. It's just soda water, nothing exciting. Benjamin, of course. Patrick, good to see you. Let's see. Brandon, my son will be 12 months in 2 weeks. Want to have one more, but not sure if we should wait. What's a good separation between siblings? It's all preference. Very true. My wife is 11 months apart from her sibling. I am 4 years from one of my sisters and then 5 years from another. And so, hey, thank you to everybody or anybody. MZ Con 93, thank you for the things. When you guys send that stuff, that's kind of funny. Hey, that's nice. Yeah, when you guys send those stuff, it's cool. I mean, especially on TikTok. I don't know if people are familiar. I do have a membership website on daduniversity.com, and you can pay what feels good. And that's how I do these videos, and people support it. So, this isn't something, I can tell you it's not extremely lucrative. So when people give things like this, it's very nice. And I know also when people are, the membership is for you, but it's also to help support these videos, production. I have an assistant, videographer. This stuff takes a lot of work and a lot of time. I was just in another studio. We were doing interviews, and then I would drive over to here. There's lots of late nights, lots of early mornings. And so it's a lot of work, but I do have the membership site, which is pay what feels good. So you get to choose what you want to pay, and it's up to you. You get to choose the value. So as far as having the two apart, yeah, I mean, I think that's a personal thing. My kids are about 2 years apart, and that's a great age for us. That was on purpose. We wanted that sort of, at least I'll tell you, for us, we wanted to get one through potty training in order to then have the second one. That was just our thing. My wife had said that. That's a common thing, just to kind of get through like 2.5, and then have the other. But I think that's all preference. Usually the closer they are in age, I wouldn't say it's for sure, but it's easier to think that they'll be closer just because of that. But that's not always the case. But yeah. Hey, if you can handle, I just met someone who had like 4 children under 5. They had like a 4-year-old, 2 twins, and then a baby or something like that. And I was like, oof, it's just, it's a lot. It's a lot for sure. What age should I consider transitioning crib to a toddler bed? For us, it was when our child was trying to get out. When they started getting out of their crib, I don't know that there's a specific age. If they're happy in a crib, like why switch and, just for maturity, I guess. But, when we started seeing that our child was just, kind of climbing out, getting out, kind of restless in that way, we transitioned to a toddler bed. So I think that's totally different for many, many kids. Our son was quite the climber, and he was matured a little bit faster, if you will. But yes, Brandon, smash those like buttons. I don't necessarily say that. I don't consider myself a YouTuber, but yeah. Hey, Mr. Cody, my wife and I love your videos. Awesome. Just had our first baby in August. What's something you do to keep yourself mentally motivated every day? Well, I have a pretty strict routine. I get up early in the morning. I work out. And then I do if I do a form of meditation. I also now have been doing my daily gratitude and like my intentions for the day. But yeah, I fluctuate all the time. I would say even right now, going through what doing this stuff, I still do the routine, but I would say that I'm not as mentally motivated as I have been in the past. I'm kind of and this is just being candid and honest, I'm kind of at this like a little bit of a burnout phase where I feel like I've just been going and going and going and going, and I probably need some kind of a break. More than just a vacation. Like a vacation just doesn't do it. It's kind of feeling like, and especially from the creative process, because making these videos and pushing the courses and doing this stuff, it's very taxing. It's very taxing, like even the creative part of it, because I don't necessarily consider myself really a creative person. And so for me, it takes a lot out of me, honestly, to do a lot of this stuff. I kind of force myself. So as far as mentally, I eat really well. I do yoga 3-4 times a week. I work out. I try to get good sleep. That's the best you can do, I think. There's a ton of things you can really can list off, but those are the things I do. And hopefully, but that's not for everybody. Not everyone's going to go and lift weights. Not everyone's going to do yoga. Not everyone's going to eat as well. But I'm getting up there in age, and I can keep up with the youngins. So, and part of that is just making sure I get good sleep. I take care of myself, and, less alcohol too. I'd say almost, very little. It's rare now that I will drink once in a while. Whereas like I kind of used to be more of like a weekend warrior. For some people that may not affect them at all. I had found that it had affected, especially as I got older, it had affected me quite a bit. I was going up and down and definitely wasn't as mentally focused, and definitely not as motivated. So back off that alcohol for sure. Now, for some people, may not affect them at all. It's part of just, for me, it did. And I didn't know it until I was not doing it. So, it was kind of one of those things. Patrick says she's abnormally tall. Wife's afraid she's going to fall out. Then, yeah, you got to kind of, I guess every child is different. You definitely don't want them falling out of the bed. They can hurt themselves. but kind of test it, see maybe, for us, the crib was basically just like you took down one side and, you made it into a toddler bed, and, it was fine. That the child liked it. I don't think it was that big of a deal. Usually you're keeping them in there for safety reasons. And so if safety is then compromised, then yeah, you probably want to get them out of there. MZ Khan, where am I reading comments from? So sorry if I didn't explain it. This camera, I'll point right here on over there, is I have a phone that's set up for TikTok, and then I have my computer here, which is set up for YouTube Live. So I have both of them going at the same time. Kill two birds with one stone. Yeah, I've started getting more involved on TikTok, just shorter clips though, obviously. You guys got some great questions. Jake, newborn, 2 weeks, is sleeping a lot while breastfeeding. Any experience? Yeah, just let them sleep. Totally, just let them do it. I mean, we tried all kinds of stuff. I'm not an expert in that area though. Both of my children fed pretty well, but yeah, I mean, it just means they're tired. And you kind of let the baby sleep, and eventually you get on their, they get on their schedule. Aldrich, congrats. You have a baby, join the university. Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys for supporting. Some people do. Some people join Dad University for support, and that's great. I appreciate that, because you can choose what you want to pay. That's greatly appreciated. And but also, of course, you get access to all the courses. And I will say you get a little bit more access to me too, because if you can email us, and that gets directly forwarded to me. So if you have questions, usually it's a better way to get access to me. Just kind of saying that for the people who are on the live. But yeah, it's a good way to, keep your learning going. There's tons of videos broken down by category, and, you can get what you want out of it. Enigma, what does personal downtime look for you as a dad, and when? I don't have downtime in that sense. Like, I'm not much of a like sit and relax kind of guy. So in other words, like once in a while we might watch a movie together, my wife and I, and then maybe our kids, but like downtime for me is my exercise. And then, when you get home, I mean, I can tell you my day. I get up at 4:40 in the morning. I work out, meditate, eat, get ready, take one of my kids, if not, to school, head into the office, and then I'm at the office till 5. So I'm in the office by 8, office till 5-ish, sometimes 6. Depends. If I can get a yoga class in, then I will do a yoga class at 6. And then lately at about 7:30, so after my yoga class come back, I will go to the gym again with my son. So not every day, but if I can, and my son's 14 and he's wanting to go to the gym, I'll go whenever he wants. And so if it means me going twice, not a problem. Because I don't usually go to the gym in the mornings. That we have stuff at our house, and so I'll work out at the house. So for me, downtime, a lot of it is exercise. That's just what I love to do, or yoga. And then on those nights that we don't, downtime, there's not a lot. We're usually doing something, or fixing something, or cleaning something, or preparing for something. That might be why I feel burnt out, as I need some downtime. I think maybe, Enigma, you were asking a very poignant question that just made me realize why I am burnt out. So I appreciate that. That's funny. Dan, you have a dad question? Well, that's why I'm here. Ask away. That's why I'm on the chat, so you can ask your dad questions. Go for it. Aldrich, kind of an extension of what we were just saying. How long did you and your wife wait until you guys had your second baby, and why? Yeah, I think I had just mentioned is we waited until the first one was potty trained, or that we knew about when the child was going to be potty trained, because obviously you have 9 months of waiting. So ours are a little over 2 months apart, or sorry, 2 years. Dan, how do you protect your kids from the dangers of all the technology being available today? So that's a great question. So I'm a believer in delaying the technology access as long as possible. In other words, my daughter is 12. She does not have a phone. And that's rare. I mean, all of her friends have phones. My son got his around 13, and he's now 14. They do have computers, so they can access probably the same things that they would. They just don't have some of the apps and stuff. But even the computers are somewhat limited. And I think what you need to do is you need to inform them. You can't, you can keep things law and lockdown, but I think we have those conversations. It's we have conversations with them about porn and about predators and about doing, like, we have those conversations pretty openly about here's what it is, here's what you're going to do, and here's the dangers of that. So I think you can educate is probably the most important thing, but you can't like police them 24/7 all the time and expect that they're not going to cease things or do things. And so, yeah, I think that's so delay as much as possible. It's like drinking or drugs or anything like that. It's like, you want to delay the brain from even having access to any of those things as long as possible for their brains to develop. And then, once they do have the technology, we do limit, like, they just don't have tons of apps and access to things that they just don't necessarily need, access to. So, yeah, let's see. Oh, sorry. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, they can see it on their friends' devices, and it depends on what your concerns are. But that's why I think education is going to be important, and having those open conversations and say, hey, listen, you're going to see things. And, they shouldn't feel shame or anything, but it's like, you also have to show them what the reality is of this stuff. It's like, it's not good for you. It's like, eating chocolate every day. Like, yeah, it sounds really great, but you're going to get sick of chocolate. Not quite exactly the same thing, but, and so, I remember as a kid trying to do things around my parents and getting around as well. And so I do think that there's a certain aspect of it that it's okay for children to have their privacy and have their things with their friends that they do. And at the same time, feel completely safe and open to tell us that if something happens or if something is uncomfortable. And we've had a couple of those situations where, our children have come to us and said, hey, this situation happened. How you react is really important. And the way that you react is you say, thank you so much for telling me. You don't get pissed off at them, whatever it is. You don't get mad. You don't ground them. You don't do any of that. You'd say, thank you so much for telling me. I appreciate that. If you want them to keep telling you things, whether even think about it for your spouse or whatever. If you told your spouse something and she flipped out, absolutely flipped out, went crazy, got mad at you, you're like, I'm not going to tell you that anymore. And it's the same thing for kids. It's like the fact that they're coming to you and telling you something is so good. So you don't want to break that, and you want to make sure, of course, then teach them in a different moment, teach them at a different time. So sorry, there's all these questions coming through. Smitty, he has depression. How do I go about that? I'm not sure what you mean. Talking about your child, spouse. I appreciate the likes and the love. Let's see. Thomas, when should I talk to my future kids? Well, because you don't have kids, but when do you talk about sex? I think you talk about it very early on, but it's all in context of what it is that they need to know, and also, they'll ask questions. So I think, wow, my hair's all messed up. I think what happens is, and we have a little bit different philosophy. So here, I'll give you some insight. So my wife is actually much more open and talking about it than I was. And so she may, in my brain, may give them a little bit more information than I think is necessary. In her brain or in her thoughts, I'm too conservative for it. So there's like a place in the middle. The good thing is that our children know that if they have questions, they can totally come to us. I think that age starts very, very early. In other words, understanding body parts, understanding and being comfortable with that. And that's at a very young age. I think one of the things that we did that was really good too, is getting like age appropriate books, and they have them and tell you what the ages are. And that's like a good way to have discussion. In other words, you read the books together, instead of just giving your kid a book and say, here, go read it. We actually sat down and like each night would read a chapter together, have my child read it. And then we would talk about whatever it was, and then it would prompt questions. And so it was a really good way to have conversation without it being awkward, because even for parents, that can be an awkward conversation, not knowing how much to say, whatnot. And then just saying like, hey, do you have a question, or do you have any questions? If they don't have any questions, then you got to figure out like kind of what's age appropriate. A 5-year-old doesn't need to know very much in comparison to maybe a 10-year-old, or a 12-year-old boy or a 13-year-old boy, or whenever they're starting to go through puberty. It's a much different conversation. So I don't think there is one conversation of like having the sex talk. I think it's an ongoing conversation where they get a little bit more each time you have those conversations. And as you do that and you have those regular conversations, it becomes much more comfortable. Yeah, Dan, absolutely. I love doing these feeds. These are, so Smitty, I'm still confused. They told us he has depression. I think I'm going to need more information. Your child, if they told you that he has depression, how old is the child? Or if you're talking about your spouse? I'm sorry. I want to answer your question, but I'm not. Let's see. Jake, my wife's concerned that our boy is not putting on enough weight. He's dangling around his birth weight after 2 weeks. Should we be concerned? I recall a little bit of fluctuation in birth weight right at the beginning. I would suggest contacting a pediatrician for that, because the pediatrician is going to have a little bit more on the vitals of the child. But if you're concerned, I would take the child to the doctor and just, why not? Just to alleviate concerns. I don't, as I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a pediatrician. And so I'm hesitant to make recommendations of that. All kinds of things are somewhat normal, yet there's all kinds of things that have other meanings. And I would never want somebody to be concerned about something and then just dismiss it. So I typically err on the side of caution and say, if there are concerns and your wife has concerns, then I would probably go and at least ask the doctor and make sure that everything else is healthy. If your child is eating regularly and going to the bathroom regularly, there's probably not a lot. But, there's not, I would say, a lot to worry about. But like I said, even though somebody tells you not to worry, doesn't mean that you're still not going to worry, or your wife's not going to worry. So I would probably just check with a pediatrician or check with a doctor and just make sure. Okay, Smitty, I'm going to try to go here. Let's see. Sorry, there's like all these things coming through. My son was in school Monday and we got a call to come to the school. Apparently he got kicked. Because that's what you're talking about. So now he has depression. So he got kicked and he's upset because of the depression. Sorry. I'm not sure if I'm following this. I want to answer the question, but it's hard. I don't have a big screen here. I have like little pieces of the screen, And so it's kind of hard to see it. And then when I go up like this, people get to look up my nose on YouTube. So now I can't find it. Yeah, I mean, I can talk to it in general because I'm not seeing exactly what's going on. But if your son got in an argument or something, I'd probably want to find out why and what happened. As far as him being depressed, that's obviously concerning. If you can have that conversation about, if you can have that conversation with the child, and kind of understand. I don't know how old the child is. Maybe you can say how old. But if a child is old enough to communicate and having depression, then I would imagine that they're old enough to communicate in some way. I would talk to the child about, what it is that they're feeling and, what it is that's bothering them. And that could be that, depression could be that they're scared to go back, to school or, there's got to be some reasons why. And so you want to find out. I mean, that's the thing with our kids. It's like, we want our kids to be able to talk to us, to be able to tell us what's wrong. And sometimes it's difficult for them to communicate. If they're not able to really communicate with you about it, then I would take them into a therapist. I mean, most problems can be solved. I say, a lot of problems, I should say most, a lot of problems can be solved by talking about things and sort of airing that out and then realizing, okay, well, let's get to the root of the problem. But oftentimes they can't, and that's okay. And so then I think that's when a professional or therapist gets involved. And so without knowing exactly why and what happened, I don't know that I can speak to it, but I mean, that's, I'd be concerned. I would be concerned if there's, bullying going on or the child, doesn't feel good about going to school. And, school should be a safe place. And so you definitely want to find out more about that. And then, all right, Made in Kauai. Any tips for a dad of an 8-year-old daughter with a 50-50 co-parenting schedule? Well, it says you have great relationship with the mom and excellent relationship with the daughter. I'm not in that situation, so it's hard for me to comment about that. But I could say what I would do, and that is, you make the time count. That's the best you can do with an 8-year-old and having 50-50 time is you make the time count. It's, being present when you can. And, that's an opportunity to have really good focused time. When you are off time, you get some stuff done. And so that when your child is there, you can have a little bit more focus on them. That's probably the best tips I can get. I don't know if there's any specifics. Aldrich, what do I do as a father to de-stress with a newborn? Workout. Get good sleep as best you can. Switch off with your spouse. If they're getting up, you shouldn't have 2 zombies in the house at one time. So if they're getting up, then, you sleep or vice versa. I'm not a believer in like both people getting up if you don't have to. And so, both parents need good sleep. So I exercise and good sleep and eat well. Those are 3 things that, you got to do. You got to take care of your body. You got to take care of yourself before you can take care of someone else. Andrew, are girls more difficult or boys? Let me take a drink before that one. I don't think it's a girl or boy issue. I think there are personality differences, whether you have boys or girls, that are different. You can have a really strong-willed, opinionated child, and that can be more difficult. That doesn't matter whether it's a boy or girl, and that's different than a passive, sort of quiet introvert. It's going to be a different experience. I honestly don't see the difference too much. And that might be because we, especially my wife and I, we made a very conscious effort to treat our children in a similar way, especially when they were younger. In other words, like my daughter was doing the same things that a boy would have done, or we treated them this like, and this is just how it goes, whether people believe it or not, but like dads especially wrestle more with boys, do more emotional, verbal things with girls. Like this is, there's science behind this. But we did, I tried to still treat them in a similar way. And so like, my daughter took up martial arts just like my son at a very young age. And, she played in the dirt. And it's not that we're not celebrating the differences of boys and girls. We do. But yeah, I didn't feel like one was easier or harder than the other. I don't believe that. I think that there's difficulties with each, and there's, benefits of each, if you will. And these are complete generalizations. Like I said, it has to do with the kid. In general, stereotypes, females or girls have more emotion, more verbal at an early age. They're more verbal. They show more emotion, express more emotion. Whereas boys, it's more physical, more physical activity, more physical interaction. So that's the nature in general. There's complete ends of the spectrum on both sides. So, Thomas, should kids be allowed to swear? Not in my house. No. This is a personal thing. I don't like it at all. I do think that there are, when you're with your friends, this is kind of what I say to my kids. So like in our house, I don't want you doing it. It's kind of out of a respect thing. And of course we have to follow that too. I try not to. My kids have rarely heard me. My wife, on the other hand, we can have that discussion, but, so I don't like it in the house. But I know that, they will and such. And most of it is just said, I just think it kind of negates sometimes, what it is they're trying to express. Sometimes when, you swear when there's an extreme emotion, I get it. But in general, the rule around our house is no. But I will tell you, funny thing that my parents did, we weren't allowed to swear in our house, but my mother, I said this on a previous live, my mother would say, we would ask to swear, and she would give us like 30 seconds or a minute, like especially in the car on like vacation rides and stuff. And she said, okay, go. And she would time it. And we got to say every swear word that we could think of. And it was hilarious as we got older because the swear words got so much worse. And so we did this with our kids when they were really little. And it's like, it was funny what they thought were swear words because they weren't that bad, jerk, darn, whatever. But as they get older, obviously that becomes a little bit more difficult. So yeah. So no, I don't like kids swearing personally. I think it's a bad look. Yeah. So Jake, I find it difficult to support my wife during the night. She's dead tired. And as far as changing the diapers and being with him, I can help, but she has to do the feeding. Yeah. I mean, that's something you have to, coordinate together. I personally, having done it a couple different ways, my personal thought is that if she's doing the feeding, could you could bottle up breast milk for one feeding or so. She would get extra sleep. And then, on a night, every other night, every 2 nights, whatever, you switch off. That to me seems like a better way to do it so that she can get good rest and you can get good rest. That was something that we tried to do on our first, but I would get up, and then finally on the second one, my wife was breastfeeding and enjoyed it. And so it was something where I had a chance to sleep more and I was working more. And so she took most of the nights, and it didn't make sense for me to get up and simply change a diaper just for that, and this was our mutual feeling, instead of just getting a good night's sleep so I could be productive the next day. I mean, otherwise you're a zombie and you feel horrible. So that was the thing that, that has to be coordinated and agreed upon. I mean, it's like, you both have to agree on the same thing. You can't, Smitty, my son is 6 and has trouble talking. He has split households. How can I help? I would take him to a speech therapist. If he's 6 and have trouble talking, I would address that. I would address it professionally with a speech therapist, and if that's what you mean, trouble talking or trouble, I'm not sure. So only a couple minutes here before I got to go, but also want to remind everybody, daduniversity.com. Also make sure if you're not following, follow on TikTok, follow on YouTube. Give us some likes and some love. And then also daduniversity.com, you can become a member. That's part of it also. I'd love to have you guys as members. I didn't announce today's just because it was kind of chaotic. Didn't announce that we were having the chat today, but I'd like to make it a regular thing. We'll just see how that goes. So any final questions, any final thoughts? If anybody has anything, if not, I will try to do this again. I enjoy doing it as long as I'm not stopped by traffic in any sort of commute. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you, everybody, again. Well, here's a good question before I leave. I'll get this one. I like this one. Max, what would you recommend if me and my wife constantly fight? So I would try to figure out why you're fighting. If you know why you're fighting, then that's an important thing. But here's what I would recommend. I recommend you have empathy. Look at the situation from your wife's perspective. Now, oftentimes, I'm not saying that this is your situation, but oftentimes we blame the other person. Instead, just for a week, I'm going to recommend this. For a week, take complete responsibility for every single thing. Make the relationship 100% to 0. In other words, it is all about her. And do that for a week and see what happens. So I think you have to, I need more context to that of why you might be fighting. But that's an important thing. And be empathetic, because especially if you have young kids, it's very, very common and it's very difficult. We think that our job or our role is more difficult, or that we had it worse, or the other person's doing something that we don't like. And, I did, by the way, which is good, and you were not a plant. The latest course that I just dropped on Friday, I just released it, is the relationship course. So I just added that. It's called Survive or Thrive. I added that to the Dad University membership. So if you are a member, you get access to that course. So you could certainly try that if you wanted to. And that has some great tips and great things for how to, really thrive in your relationship during, the idea of having kids. So with that, I love everybody. Hope you guys have a great week, and I'll see you next time. I got to get going. I was going to say something else, but I didn't. Take care.